is ready, isn't ready at all, and should have left 20 minutes ago. But these are definitely not the back-to-work vibes that Keir Starmer is trying to project. He's reshuffled his back team to try and focus on delivery and messaging.
I don't think it's right to make those comparisons. It's completely different. And the Prime Minister said yesterday, I think almost in the same breath, talked about the diverse country that we are and that being part of our strength.
I'm not saying Westminster power play, the Starmer reshuffle that has everyone talking. Right then, let's cut straight through the Westminster spin machine, shall we? Because what happened this Monday in Downing Street wasn't just another ministerial musical chase. It was a calculated power play that has the entire political establishment asking one rather uncomfortable question. Has Sir Keir Starmer just publicly neutered his own Chancellor? Picture this scene, if you will. Rachel Reeves, the Iron Lady of Labour's economic policy, sitting in her Treasury office when the call comes through. Oh, by the way, Rachel, we're moving your Deputy Darren Jones to number 10. He'll be working directly with me now as Chief Secretary to the Prime Minister. One can only imagine the smile freezing on her face as she processed what this actually meant. Her most trusted lieutenant, plucked away and planted firmly in Starmer's camp. But wait, there's more. Because Sir Keir wasn't finished with his little Christmas in July surprise. Enter stage left, Baroness Minu Shafik, former Deputy Governor of the Bank of England, now Starmer's top economic advisor. Let that sink in for a moment. The Prime Minister has essentially installed his own economic brain trust, complete with a Treasury Mandarin as his chief private secretary, Dan York-Smith. It's rather like watching someone systematically dismantle a chess opponent's defenses whilst maintaining the most charming smile. Now, the official line from Downing Street is positively theatrical in its denial. Yvette Cooper, bless her heart, stood before the cameras with a kind of conviction that would make even the most seasoned Westminster watchers raise an eyebrow. The Chancellor had not been sidelined, she declared. Quite the opposite was true. Quite the opposite. One does wonder what political dictionary she's been consulting, because from where most of us are sitting, this looks suspiciously like a textbook case of being boxing whilst everyone pretends you're being elevated. The timing, as they say in politics, is everything. Here we are, mere weeks before the autumn budget, arguably the most crucial economic statement this Labour government will make, and suddenly the Chancellor finds herself surrounded by Starmer's people. It's rather like being told you're still the head chef whilst discovering that someone else has hired all the sous chefs and is now standing over your shoulder suggesting recipes. Let's not dance around the elephant in the room here. Rachel Reeves has painted herself into the most exquisite corner with her fiscal rules. She's committed to balancing day-to-day spending with tax receipts by 2029 to 30, a noble pledge that now looks about as comfortable as a Victorian corset in a spinning class. The mathematics are brutally simple. Either she raises taxes substantially, or she cuts spending dramatically. There's no magic money tree, despite what some might have hoped, and certainly no fairy godmother wielding a fiscal wand. This is where Starmer's masterstroke becomes rather more apparent. By surrounding himself with economic expertise and placing trusted allies in key positions, he's essentially created a buffer zone. When the inevitable backlash comes, and oh, it will come, he can point to the collective decision-making process. Well, of course, the budget was prepared with full consultation across government, he'll say, while simultaneously ensuring that any unpopular decisions can be shared amongst a wider cast of characters. The irony is delicious, isn't it? Labour spent years in opposition criticizing Conservative chancellors for being puppets of number 10, and now here we have what appears to be the most sophisticated example of prime ministerial economic control since Gordon Brown was prowling the corridors of the Treasury with his famous iron fist. Kimi Badenoch's assessment was characteristically blunt, shifting the deck chairs on the Titanic. Harsh, perhaps, but not entirely without merit. Because the fundamental economic challenges facing this government haven't magically disappeared with a bit of ministerial rearrangement. The public finances are still in a parlous state, productivity growth remains stubbornly anemic, and the cost of living crisis continues to bite ordinary families across the country. What's particularly fascinating is how this move reveals Starmer's political instincts. This isn't the action of someone lacking confidence. Quite the opposite. This is a prime minister who understands that economic policy is far too important to be left entirely to economists. He has watched previous governments rise and fall on fiscal credibility, and has clearly decided that he wants his fingerprints on every major economic decision. The establishment response has been predictably measured. Senior ministers closing ranks, insisting that everything is perfectly harmonious, that the Chancellor remains fully empowered. But anyone who spent more than 5 minutes observing Westminster politics knows that the most dangerous moments are often preceded by the most vigorous denials of any problems whatsoever. Consider the optics for a moment. Rachel Reeves, who built her reputation as Labour's economic heavyweight, suddenly finds herself operating within a system where the Prime Minister has his own Economic Advisory Council. It's rather like being a conductor who arrives at the concert hall to find that someone else has been rehearsing with the orchestra all week. The broader implications are equally intriguing. This reshuffle sends a clear signal to the civil service, to the markets, and to Labour backbenchers about where real economic power now resides. It's not enough to hold the Chancellor's brief if the Chancellor's most important relationships are being managed from Downing Street. In the brutal arithmetic of Westminster influence, proximity to power matters more than formal titles. But perhaps the most telling aspect of this entire episode is what it reveals about Sir Keir's assessment of his own political position. A Prime Minister confident in his Chancellor's ability to deliver doesn't typically feel the need to install quite so many supervisory layers. This isn't collaboration, it's quality control. The markets, of course, are watching with a kind of quiet intensity that should make any politician nervous. They remember Liz Truss's brief and catastrophic tenure, and they are clearly waiting to see whether Labour can deliver the fiscal discipline it has promised. Starmer's move suggests he understands this pressure intimately and is determined not to leave anything to chance. What we're witnessing is a slow-motion transformation of how economic policy is made in this country. The traditional model, Chancellor proposes, Prime Minister disposes, is being replaced by something far more collaborative, or controlling, depending on your perspective. It's a fascinating case study in how power actually works, as opposed to how the Constitution... The ultimate test, of course, will come with the autumn budget. Will Rachel Reeves be able to maintain the impression of economic leadership whilst operating within Starmer's new framework? Can she deliver the tough decisions that everyone knows are coming while sharing credit with a cast of dozens? And perhaps most importantly, will the British public buy the idea that these are genuinely her decisions when it's increasingly clear that Number 10 has its hands firmly on the economic steering wheel? The autumn budget is shaping up to be one of the most consequential economic statements in recent memory, and the political theatre surrounding it has already begun. Rachel Reeves may still hold the title of Chancellor, but Sir Keir Starmer has ensured that he holds something far more valuable, control over the narrative and the decision-making process that will define this government's economic legacy. In the end, this mini reshuffle tells us something profound about modern political leadership. It's no longer enough to delegate and hope for the best. In an era of 24-hour news cycles and instant market reactions, successful prime ministers must be hands-on managers of their government's most critical policies. Starmer has clearly decided that economic policy is far too important to be left to chance, even if that means ruffling a few feathers in his own Treasury team. The question that remains is whether this approach will prove successful or whether it will simply create new layers of confusion and conflict within government. One thing is certain. The next few months will provide a fascinating test case in how power really works in modern British politics, and whether Sir Keir's bold gamble will pay off or spectacularly backfire. So there you have it, Westminster's latest power play, dressed up as administrative efficiency, but revealing something far more interesting about how this Labour government actually intends to govern. Keep watching this space, because if this is how Sir Keir handles a friendly reshuffle, imagine what he'll do when the real political storms begin to blow. Don't forget to subscribe for more insights into the machinations of British politics. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next in this most intriguing of political dramas.